One of my favorite things, if not my favorite thing about music, is the people that I've been able to meet and make friends with along the way. I met Drew Swindle about 8 or 9 years ago when he was playing in a band in college, and I was just some high school kid that was wanting to become a musician and was constantly picking the brains of people like Drew along the way. We talk a little bit about that in today's interview, and I just wanted to get into kind of his story, how he got into music and what led him to start building pedals and different things like that. So if you enjoyed today's video, please let me know in the comments below and by giving this video a like. I'm really hoping to do more of these interviews periodically, and if you have some people that you would want to hear me interview, let me know down in the comments below who those are. But if you're new to the channel, my name's Riggs. I would love it if you would subscribe. I'm a guitar player and a musician, and I make videos like this all the time. So if you want to support the channel in any way, you can do so by shopping in the affiliate links down below. And you'll also notice I've started something else called the tip jar. You can either donate via PayPal or Venmo, just a few bucks to help fuel my coffee addiction and provide some beverages for people like Drew that I am interviewing. And since some of you seem to be into coffee today, I've been enjoying the Ethiopia Hambela Kirte from Onyx Coffee Lab. That's a really excellent offering that I highly recommend if you're into coffee. So all of Drew's stuff will be linked in the description down below as well, his website, his social media, and different things like that. So be sure to give him a follow and check out all the other things that he's got going on. And without further ado, here's my interview with Drew Swindle. Welcome. I'm here with my good friend Drew Swindle. I'm trying something a little different, trying out an interview here. If you don't know, Drew is a musician, he's a guitar player, he's a mad scientist, an electrical engineer, and he also builds pedals when he's not doing all of those other things. I've been a friend of Drew's for quite a while. We've known of each other for years. I first met him when he was playing in a band in college, and I was in high school because he's clearly so much older than I am. And later he started building pedals. We moved to the same town, or rather I moved here, and recently we've started hanging out some more again. So yeah, thanks for coming on, Drew.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Man, I'm so old.
so very old. The 30s are hitting hard
Dirty
with that
30
zero
hit.
behind.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so one thing that always really interests me about different people, friends of mine, players, musicians, etc., is their first musical memory. So maybe the first time that you heard music, or you remember like a song or something that stuck out to you. What was that for you?
So my memory is a little fuzzy, but the thing that is obvious to me is Dad's classic rock.
Okay,
You know,
yeah.
just like Bad Company, AC/DC, Led Zeppelin. I'm sure there was something earlier than that, as far as like as a kid, baby, nursery stuff, whatever. But
Sure.
what I remember musically that I latched on to was classic rock, for sure.
Interesting. Okay, so like, how old do you think? Somewhere like, were you like a young kid, like 4 or 5, maybe a little older than that?
Probably a little bit older than that,
Okay.
just because my memory is not super great as far as like the really young ages.
Right.
So yeah, you're probably over 5, 6, 7, 8-ish probably.
Okay, and was it, so like kind of an adjunct to that, like do you think that like that kind of stuff maybe is what made you like gravitate towards guitar initially, or was it just something about like hearing that music that was so different or so guitar heavy that kind of grabbed you, or was it just that was like what was in the house all the time?
Yeah, so I would say I was interested in guitar more because of that. I'm also a drummer for sure.
Right.
Like I would say I'm equally as much a drummer nerd.
Mm-hmm.
But hearing, watching, we had concert DVDs like crazy. So like watching Led Zeppelin concert DVDs and watching the Eagles concerts, and he big Bad Company fan again, and like or like Free and that kind of stuff, and very guitar centric, very memorable riffs and singable riffs.
Yeah.
So that definitely caught my attention, and I got a guitar, I think, for my 12-year-old Christmas present. So that's what I got first.
Okay.
So
Okay. So guitar at 12. You said
Yeah.
you also are probably equally a drummer, and I know you've got a pretty sweet kit down here in the basement. But
Yeah.
what was kind of the progression? Like you get a guitar at 12. What do you do?
Did lessons
Okay.
for a little while, which were questionable as to how good they were. It was more of a show up with a song you want to learn, and they tab it out, and you learn the song.
Classic.
I am very lack on theory, scales.
Okay.
It's all self-taught after that. I took lessons for a little over a year, just in that format, and just kind of picking things up from there, just learning songs. But everything after that's been self-taught. Did the whole youth praise band stuff in middle school. Started that in 7th grade.
Okay.
And since I started doing that in 7th grade on guitar, that's just where everything went from then.
Yeah.
My story that I've told a couple people is I started playing drums in the middle school band, percussion.
Yes,
but I wanted to play drums.
Yeah.
Started playing percussion in the middle school band in 7th grade. Or I guess that was maybe 5th grade. I don't know. Whenever that starts, I don't remember. My memory again.
Yeah.
It all runs
long
together.
time ago for you. You're 30
long
now.
Time. It was so long ago. It all runs together at some point. But youth band tryouts is when everything took a turn.
Okay.
So youth band tryouts at church. There was a lot of drummers trying out and no guitar players. And my thing is I was very bad at both of them. So I would rather play than not play. So here I am playing guitar in every like musical band aspect, but I play drums whenever I can on my own. So
okay. So take me from like you're playing guitar, you're playing drums, and you're doing that kind of stuff. So then was there anything kind of in those like high school years that were pivotal? Like did you play any like outside of church? Like what kept your musical interest going? Because I know a lot of people that did like middle school band. It was like they had a middle school band and then like that was kind of it. Or maybe they played at their church or played some around the house, but they never stuck with it as you clearly have. So what was kind of the thing that piqued your interest enough for you to, continue doing it?
I think a lot of that is probably attributed to just having the opportunities to keep doing it. Because I think it's unfortunate and it's kind of a bummer for a lot of people who don't really have outlets, especially to play with other people. Right. When you just are kind of only playing in your bedroom, and that's eventually you're just like, I'm kind of bored of this. But being in the youth band and doing that, and also having the opportunities through that to kind of do events at other churches, or like I know our youth band got asked to do other events at other places, and that was kind of like playing out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In a way, so that was really fun and kept me engaged. And fortunately, those opportunities kind of continued through college. But yeah, it's just I think being able to do it with people is the big thing for me. I'm not one to stay super engaged and focused just on my own, like in a room by myself. Right. Like I really love getting around people and like just that energy of being with other musicians. And so I think just fortunately having the ability to be in those environments keeps you engaged, or kept me engaged. So
yeah. Okay. So one thing that I'm kind of fascinated by, and I want to kind of hear how this was for you. So I grew up in a household of like no musicians. Like my dad can barely keep a tune, right? Like there was no one in my family that was really musical at all. I mean, my grandmother played piano because my grandfather's a pastor, and my mom was always really into music. And her claim to fame was doing middle school drumline and like stuff like that, but she can't keep a beat. So I'm not really sure if that applies. So were either of your parents musical? Clearly music fans, but okay.
All
right.
There is an uncle by marriage who plays acoustic, kind of a worship leader.
We all have that uncle.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's literally it when it comes to musical talent, background. I take that back. I think my mom did take piano lessons as a kid.
Right.
Was not a musical thing after that. but yeah, I don't know where it came from. I couldn't tell you.
Okay. Yeah, that's I have this theory that most of the musicians that I know that do music in some capacity as some form of their livelihood, or who are obviously like very into it and like just always making it even just like a hobby, quote unquote. It may not be something that's like making them their income, but they're just really into it. Like if they could be doing anything, that's what they're doing. Most of the people that I know are basically like the same situation as us. It's like I have an uncle that plays acoustic guitar and is like, the guy to have around at parties because he knows everyone's favorite, Friends in Low Places and like all of these other hits that, just everybody knows. And it is a good singer, and I have another uncle who's a pretty good singer, but certainly no one that's like a professional musician. And maybe that's because we didn't have somebody to look at that was like, man, Uncle Bob is really broke and not doing super well for himself. So maybe the music thing isn't going to work out after all.
Yeah. There's no deterrent there. It's like,
no deterrent. It'll be great, Mom.
This is what I want to do.
So, okay, you went to University of Alabama.
Yeah, Roll Tide.
Roll Tide. Electrical engineering?
Yeah.
Okay. And what was kind of your, like, what made you want to study electrical engineering, and then, like, what kind of within that was, like, what was the interest there? Like, what piqued that interest?
I'm not entirely sure. I mean, I've always been interested in it. Like, okay. I can't point to anything. If I could point to anything, it's probably, I knew fairly early, I think, that I wanted to be an engineer. My dad is a civil engineer, and I love my dad. So it was just kind of like, well, maybe I want to be an engineer. But I was also really liked technology and loved video games growing up, and, just anything that was electronic or just tinkering around with random stuff and building Legos. Like, love building Legos. Yeah. Like, it's just always kind of been in that realm, I guess. And so it was kind of, I started with electrical engineering. Like, I didn't like try a bunch of different majors. I just went in with it and went all the way through. And I just decided that's what I wanted to do. So I think that's probably what made me spurred that. I do have technically a computer focus, like a computer engineering focus within electrical engineering. Okay. And just all that means is I kind of traded some more classic electrical engineering classes for like programming classes. So I get a little more of the computer programming background, which I've really enjoyed, because that's kind of the area I've kind of tried to hone in a little bit more than just basic electronics. So
right. So you're in school, you're studying electrical engineering, and somewhere, I guess it was probably around your like sophomore, junior year was when we met. You were playing in a band that had you been in like pretty much for all of college at that point? What was obviously the music interest carries from high school, you go to college and you're like around other musicians. Kind of talk me through like your college like band experience.
So I was actually really worried originally going to college. I was like, it's a brand new environment. Like I went to college with a lot of friends from my hometown, but like my musical opportunities kind of disappeared, Right. I mean, I wasn't too far from my hometown, but in a sense I was like, I'm kind of starting over in a way. I was like anxious about how that would go. And fortunately I got plugged in at the church I was attending, as like I went to their freshman life group. They had a freshman life group band, and got asked to be a part of that, and met some monumental people there that I have ended up playing with for another decade since then. But some of the people that I did meet in that band were a part of kind of this other band that, and my roommate, I was roommates with the guy who was the electric guitarist for this band I ended up joining. He stepped away. I was kind of the next best fit in the sense of, hey, we're already friends with Drew. We know he can play. Played with him before in other capacities. Maybe he should join this band.
Yeah, and we already know where he lives.
And we already know where he lives. He's literally in the same spot. So that was honestly like kind of a real blessing, because I went to college. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to have an opportunity to play guitar anywhere. And that just kind of fell out of nowhere. And I was like, this is awesome. And it's continued to do so. And it's just been thankful for that. But yeah, I got asked, the funny story about that is I got asked to join that band literally the week of them recording their first EP.
Oh wow!
So the previous guy had stepped away, all cordial, like no one had bad feelings about anything. It's just something he couldn't do at the time. And he was like, but we have booked studio space or a home studio space to record our EP, and it's next week. So
no pressure. Can you hope you're good?
Yeah, can you write electric parts for 4 songs, and we're recording Saturday. It's like, okay, cool. And then it's gone ever since. That's how it's gone.
So, all right. So tell me about that, like, next week of your life, really. It's like you're obviously, like, under pressure writing parts for songs with, like, guys but, like, presumably you haven't heard these songs or anything like that. So what was kind of, like, what was going on in your mind? Because you're obviously, like, you're still in school, you're still taking all these classes, like, you can't just not do that. You have to do all this other stuff. So tell me a little bit about that and what that was like for you and kind of shaping you as a musician now.
So from what I remember, we had set up in the church we attended in their sanctuary. They were gracious enough to let us set up and kind of practice, kind of flesh out some stuff. So we had kind of practiced together as a band on, like, how these songs would sound, like if we were going to play them live. So it was a lot of, like, I had listened to them as much as I could beforehand, whatever scratch tracks there were, and I wasn't trying to overcomplicate things. I was like, I don't have a lot of time. These are the songs. Here's just what I feel and what I think works, and just kind of wrote whatever came to mind first, because I didn't have too much time to rewrite anything.
Right, yeah, it's just gut instinct has to win.
Yeah, it was just like, this is what I feel and this is what feels natural to me, so we're going to put that on there. And, obviously we revisited some stuff. We recorded all 4 of them. We technically tracked them all in one day at a guy's home studio, wow. So there wasn't a ton of time to, like, flesh things out. But we did, we did kind of, like, figure out things while we were there too. But, yeah, it was a whirlwind. So
so was that your first time, like, recording, like, in a studio situation? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
That
was
quite
the trial by fire.
That was very, very fast. That was technically, that's the first recorded material I've been a part of, I would say.
So how old were you at that point? 20, somewhere around there?
Probably 19 or 20. 2011, 2012, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. So
it's all blurry.
Yeah. All a blur. Trial by fire. All right. So electrical engineering, you're a guitar player. It only makes sense that you'd eventually start a pedal company.
Yeah.
So kind of walk me through, because I know a little bit of this story, but I actually don't know a ton of, like, details and that kind of stuff. So obviously, like, you kind of have, at least, like, while not maybe specifically, pedal schematics that you've been studying for school, you at least kind of have the know-how and the fundamentals and, like, what you're talking about with knowing some coding and that kind of thing to kind of design your own stuff. But what was kind of the push to, even initially just start, like, playing around with circuit designs? You've always been a tinkerer, but what was kind of the step that took you maybe toe first into what would become Swindler Effects?
Yeah, so it's kind of surprising how long it took me to combine those two things. Like, I had a substantial pedal board in high school and started it in middle school, but even going into school for electrical engineering, I never made that connection for, like, the longest time. Like, pedals weren't, like, a thing that I thought I could do that was, like, that was possible, or I don't know. I just never put 2 and 2 together. It took literally until, like, my senior year of college to even before I even thought about building a pedal.
Interesting.
And which seems like a really long time given my background, but it was weird that the band I was playing in, some guys needed some, like, very simple utility stuff, like an AB. I think some of the first things I built were an AB switcher and a clean boost, external tap. I built a favorite switch for my Strymon El Capistan.
There you go.
It was just literally, like, utility stuff. Like, I need this. And I was like, like, maybe I should give that a try. I should at least research it and see if it's something that I could do.
Yeah.
But surely, given my college background and what I was studying, I should be able to do something. And started with those, and then you just get to Googling and you find the massive black hole of a world that pedals are. And because I was interested in pedals, but it's even crazier when you get into, like, the building side, and there's just resources and forums to read, and you go deep. And I had like a to-do list that was like a mile long of stuff that I wanted to try and build, and
wow.
It get bit by the bug. So
Yeah. All right. So I want to go backwards a little bit and talk about like some of your first pedal boards.
Okay.
Okay. So your first, like, you're in college, you're playing in this band, you're recording your EP, you're looking down at your feet. What's on your pedal board at that time?
Ooh, at that time in college, what stands out to me would be I had full tone, full drive, Ernie Ball VP Jr. Obviously, I was still probably kicking around some Boss pedals for a long time. I know I had a Boss CE5 chorus ensemble for a long time. I had the Electro Harmonics Cathedral Reverb for a really long time.
I remember that. Yeah.
I had DD3 for a really long time. Then it gets fuzzy. Depends on because right in college, I would probably say between my like sophomore and junior year of college is when I got into pedals. So I was like transitioning like my single unit Boss pedals to like Strymon stuff or like or electro harmonic stuff. It was like, because my first pedal board in high school was like all Boss.
Of course.
It was Super Overdrive, Blues Driver, DD3. I don't remember what I had for reverb. I don't know if I had a reverb. Chorus ensemble, tuner. I mean, it was Boss. And then a Dunlop wah and a volume pedal. Like that's what you had.
Yeah.
Had a DL4 for a long time, line 6. But yeah, it depends on what part of college you're talking about. But yeah.
So that later part, you're kind of transitioning, like you made the mention of like building like a favorite switch for your LCAP, that kind of stuff. Which is I think LCAP came out in 2011, I think. So that would have been like
makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Strymon's now like blowing up the market with all of their pedals that now live in modern infamy. And I'm a big fan of the LCAP. I'm still an LCAP user, and like I'm just kind of one. You keep your presets, and I need my one like favorite setting, and I really don't even use that half the time. And yeah, I'm a big fan. But okay, so your end of college pedal board, like about this time, like you start building pedals, you've got an LCAP and anything that's like carried over from some of the other stuff, or have you completely swapped out for the latest and greatest?
Man, that's hard to remember. I know probably towards like graduation would have been like LCAP, Cathedral Reverb. I got the JHS double barrel. I got into that. I had that for a very long time. I think that replaced the full drive for me. But those were really the staples that I used like all the time. Was double barrel, LCAP, and then Cathedral. And I replaced it with something at some point. I did get a Blue Sky at some point after that. That's all I remember.
Yeah. Okay, so you're building utility pedals for bandmates, friends, that kind of stuff is needed, and then you start like getting into and seeing like different stuff you want to try. So when it came to actually like making a company, like creating Swindler and that kind of stuff, which was not long after graduation if I remember correctly, what was kind of the drive for that? Was there something that you had in your head that like you hadn't really found on the market? Was it just kind of like experimental accidents turned into like, oh, this is actually pretty good, like, and some of my friends want these? What was like early like Swindler effects when it became more like overdrive pedals and different things like that once you started kind of expanding from the foot switches and AB boxes and things like that?
Yeah. So I started selling stuff on Reverb.
Classic.
Just like custom stuff. I really got to the point where I was like, I want to build all this stuff, but I really like don't have the money just to buy parts. So I was literally like selling. I had a free website, I think, that people could contact me, and I was just like taking requests at this point. Like I was like, if someone wanted me to build something, I would try and build it and basically charge them like the parts cost. Because I was like, I just want to build, but I don't have the money to like front all this stuff. Uh, so like, yeah, I started building just random clones of stuff and like random mods and tweaks of stuff, anything that I could find an approachable schematic to, that I could feel like I could potentially do.
Right.
A lot of random graphics. I did a lot of Star Wars graphics. I did a lot of I did some like family pets on pedals and like really random stuff. But at some point I was like, I kind of that's a lot, like doing custom shop stuff, and like email threads can get really long and it's a lot of communication. And at some point in like 2014-ish, I did want to make something that was more like my product, or like my all these other things were just like learning things and stuff I was interested in. But at some point it turned into me like wanting to make something that was like I could put my name on and like feel like it was literally and feel like it was something that I was really like proud of, like that I had kind of created, or something that I was interested in. And a lot of my, especially my early designs, did come from like stuff I had that I kind of wish did something else, like a dual preset reverb. I was like, I want a reverb, but I want 2 sounds. I was like, that should be pretty easy. So I just tried that. Like when I did the delay pedal with the tap tempo, there weren't many delay pedals in that smaller size that did tap tempo. It was a lot of like seemingly small things, but like my Iron Drive tube screamer style overdrive with the separate bass and treble controls. Like I wanted it bright, but I also wanted it kind of full, and I can't do that with a tone knob. So like that's what I ended up doing. And I have 2 of them on my board to this day, and I built that pedal in 2014. Designed it 2014. So it all came kind of out of that, just wanting literally slight tweaks on stuff that I already liked for the most part, and just running with it from there, really.
Yeah. So, all right. So obviously, like, you have a legitimate like need for some of this stuff, like you're talking about. You want like a tube screamer, but with more clipping options, and also like independent bass and treble controls and things like that. What became like the part of the process that you maybe didn't think that you'd enjoy, that when it became like Swindler effects as we now currently know it? Like, what's your favorite thing to do? Is it like, I'm thinking about like, obviously, like you have to like do like very specific, and I'm not a pedal builder, so forgive any of my terminology that's not correct. Is it like building schematics, or is it, just like initial like R&D, like you're just breadboarding stuff and like, okay, that's not quite right, I want this, slightly different, whatever? Like, what's been, 1, your favorite part of the process, and 2, have there been any moments where you've had like you finally got it right and you like, jump up and down and scream all excited and, and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, chasing that high is kind of what it's all about a lot of times.
Yeah.
That high comes to me kind of with programming stuff.
Okay.
Later kind of in our line of pedals, I guess, kind of dove more into the digital side and trying to leverage that for like presets and just external control capabilities and ways to, because I really like trying to get the most out of an effect as you can, to not, I mean, there's obviously something to be said for limitations and being limited in like 2 knobs and that's it.
Right.
But I actually really like doing my best to recreate as many sounds as you can accurately, especially in a live setting, like thinking about how you're going to recreate songs that are recorded on a CD record. So you need to be able to kind of switch quickly. So leveraging that digital side is where the coding comes in, and trying to get your presets and recalling stuff that way. Yeah. So the banging your head against a wall for a very long time on a single like programming problem, and then where you feel like you're a complete idiot and you have no idea what you're doing, and then when you figure it out, that turn into I'm an absolute genius is like a very mountaintop feeling when you crest that hill. So the circuit board layout is really interesting to me as well. It's just a fun, it can be stressful, but it's also really kind of relaxing to make it all look real pretty and nice and clean,
Yeah.
Everything has its spot. So.
Yeah. So of all the pedals that you've built, which, how many Swindler pedals have there been now? Like a 6 or 7, somewhere in there?
7.
Okay, somewhere in there.
Sort of 7.
More than 1, less than 10?
Yeah.
Somewhere in that range. What's been the one that was the most frustrating, but then was like the biggest like reward when you finally had that like eureka moment and like figured it out?
The Golf is definitely the hardest pedal I've ever designed. It's just a lot. There's a lot of parts.
Yeah.
Like a lot of parts crammed in there.
Yeah.
So getting that in the same package was difficult. And Bucket Brigade analog chorus, it's temperamental. It's a difficult design. Just to get it all right and doing it what I wanted it to, and fitting really, and to get everything that I wanted fitting where I wanted it was difficult. Yeah. And it actually didn't happen in the V1. In the V1, when everything was through hole components, I left some stuff out, and I just couldn't do some things that I wanted to.
Yeah.
And then when I transitioned our entire line to surface mount components, just because I couldn't keep up building them by hand, it just wasn't possible. Then I got myself the room to include everything I wanted to originally.
Yeah.
So it helped, but had to basically redesign it. I designed that one twice.
Yeah.
It was the last one that I designed through hole before going surface mount.
Okay.
So there's a couple of them. I mean, I can't remember off the top of my head. Somewhere around 60 to 70 probably through hole versions of the V1, and then I was like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah. Your hands are bleeding one day, and you're like, this isn't possible.
Yeah, that pedal very definitely required the jump to surface mount. I was like, I can't keep building these.
Yeah.
I can build like 5 a week.
Wow.
And that's it.
How many hours would it take to build one?
I mean, when I'm stuffing the boards with all the components, a long time. I mean, yeah, like 6 or 7 hours on one, maybe.
For one pedal.
From start to finish, maybe. It just took forever. Yeah.
Yeah. So if people have the opportunity to buy a V1, they should buy it knowing that you've had probably some of your blood and DNA inside of that pedal working 6 or 7 hours.
If they're a sentimental collector, sure, but the V2 is for sure better.
Yeah.
So,
So the V2, and just the Golf in general, if you're not familiar, is like a small footprint, like single-size enclosure chorus. It has, I'm going to forget these, so correct me, tap tempo, MIDI capabilities via an 1/8 inch jack or 1/4 inch?
1/4 inch TRS.
1/4 inch TRS jack. 3 presets on board or 2?
2 on board.
Yeah.
Live in a preset.
Live in a preset, right. And what else? Because I'm forgetting it. It's all analog, but it's digitally controlled.
So it's full analog signal path, completely digitally controlled. You've got all of your standard kind of controls. You've got tap tempo. You've got tempo ramping. You've got momentary bypass in there now. You've got different waveforms. The Golf is mono in, stereo out. Yes, external tap, external expression, MIDI control over presets and parameters. I think that's it, maybe.
So theoretically, you could have 128 of your favorite chorus presets if you were controlling it via MIDI.
50, but
50. I mean, okay. If you're using more than 50, if you're using more than 50 MIDI presets, you need to comment below that's how many chorus presets you need. And if you need more than that, I'm sure Drew would be happy to somehow figure out a V3 just for you.
Based on how it was programmed originally, 50 was the right number that fit in the memory that I had.
Yeah, that makes sense. So Golf's the most rewarding that you've done for that reason. If you could only have 2 Swindler pedals on a pedal board, so of all the pedals that you've built, you've only got 2 that you're able to put on any given pedal board. You can add whatever else you want to the board, but for whatever crazy reason, maybe demand or something like that, you're like, man, I can only put 2 Swindler pedals on my board. What are those 2 going to be?
That's difficult because one is kind of on the fence, but I could do it with something else. It's not like super unique. My gut reaction was to say the Iron Drive and the Nexus switcher.
All right.
Because I love the capabilities of the switcher, but It's hard to say because I couldn't technically buy a switcher in the same size that does what it does. But I could probably get around with other ways of doing that.
Yeah.
So just pedals that make noise. We'll go iron drive and we'll go with the Golf. Because I am really, probably thanks to you actually last being over, I am experimenting more with that like kind of always on vibrato, low, just thickening sound.
Yeah.
And that's super dope.
Yeah,
so.
I'll link that video above here as well. I hung out at Drew's at some point last year and shot that, and I still have to buy a Golf, by the way. But we were playing around with it, and one of my favorite settings was when we were doing the exact thing that you're talking about. It was like this kind of like subtle thickening thing. Like you wouldn't think, oh, there's a chorus on, but it almost added kind of like a double tracking kind of effect. There was just enough width to it that it really fattened it up. It was a super cool sound.
Because I've always kind of struggled with like how to use it in a lot of scenarios.
If you're not playing 80s, synth wave,
and I've been able to incorporate it in that capacity for like lead lines and stuff. Like it's just bigger.
Yeah,
so, I like that a lot.
Yeah, it's like, wait, is it on? Oh, okay, it's already on. You kick it off, you're like, no, it's back on. Yeah, that makes sense.
So we'll do that.
Yeah. So iron drive is clearly like, I'm a big fan of it. I've done a video on it, linked here, and I'm not a tube screamer guy. We've had this conversation because you're not really a tube screamer guy either. So it's kind of like, give me the pedal nerd but doesn't really understand pedals breakdown of particularly what like the LED clipping mode is, because you have the silicon mode that does more of the tube screamer thing. Again, you've still got like the fully independent bass and treble controls, but the LED mode is the one that I like the most, and I know it's the one that you like the most too. And that one's like, it's kind of got some of a little bit of the like immediacy of something like a blues breaker circuit. It's clearly not a blues breaker circuit though, and obviously you can speak to that. So kind of like, what's the secret sauce of the iron drive, if you will, without giving away too many trade secrets?
I honestly can't tell you too much, and that's not because of trade secrets. That's just, I'm not sure. I literally started with a TS-808 and broke out the tone control into a bass and treble, and whatever, when I did that and where you applied that, bass is pre-gain and treble is post clipping, post op amp.
Okay, yeah.
In the circuit, layout. But just from doing that, changed some things. I'm not really sure. Too much, to be perfectly honest, and it's been a really long time since I looked at it. But just separating those out, and then the diode clipping, silicone compresses it, chops off the top and bottom more, and squashes it, compresses your signal more. LEDs don't. They still compress, but they do it less.
Higher headroom, we would say. Yeah.
And the middle of the clipping switch is just open. There are no diodes. It's just full on, full out.
Yes.
It's just straight up op amp. There's no compression. There's no clipping. There's no the op amp will clip at a certain extent, but the LED is just kind of a nice soft clipping. Yeah. And it's just kind of, it's smoother. It just felt right to me. That's what I always play it in. Yeah. I mean, my knobs are close-ish to noon on LED clipping. Yeah. Man, that's where we're at.
This is a philosophy part 2 for this episode. I think that if you design a pedal and it doesn't sound good with everything pointed at noon, then you're probably designing the pedal wrong. Like, if I want to be able to set everything at noon, just put the knob straight up and down, turn it on, and like, all right, that's a sound. You may want it brighter or darker or whatever, but I think designing around noon's a pretty good sign of a pretty good pedal with a lot of range.
There. If it sounds bad there, you're going to turn people off pretty quick.
Yeah, they're going to turn it off and go, it's too bright or it's too muddy or whatever, and then they're just going to move on to the next pedal that's probably almost the same thing, but they just tuned theirs to sound better at noon. So free pedal designing advice for any other pedal designers out there is just make it sound good at 12 o'clock. Yeah. Put that on a t-shirt. That'll be it. Yeah. So we have the iron drive, we have the Golf, 2 of your staple pedals. What's another pedal that, like, something you didn't build, but something you look at and maybe it's like, the pedal you wish you had built, or something that you see as like, man, that's really cool what they did with that. That's a brilliant idea. What's just like first thing that comes to mind? I'm sure as a designer, you've looked at tons of schematics and gone, oh, that's really cool. But what's one that just like pops to your mind as something you think is really cool?
So the first thing that pops in my mind is something that I always wanted to pick up, but I never actually bought, and it was the Chase Bliss Thermae.
Oh yeah.
I was really interested in that pedal. It was, it's like a Bucket Brigade analog delay, but they like quantized the steps to be pitch shifting.
Yeah.
And I was like, how do you do that?
With analog chips.
Yeah.
It's one thing to do it digitally, but
it was one of those pedals I was like, in my like musical areas, I was like, I have no idea how I would use this pedal. I don't know if it makes sense for me to buy this pedal at all.
Yeah.
But I was like, that's really cool. And for the other side is I don't know if it'll ever happen. Who knows? But I for a while was really planning on doing some sort of analog delay with Bucket Brigade chips. And I was like, that was kind of hitting at that time. And I was like, that's phenomenal and fascinating. So, and plus just, their same kind of design methodology of, or at least back then of analog, but the best of
digital
both worlds.
brain, analog heart,
the best of both worlds
is
your analog purist, but also the benefits of digital. And obviously they've gone more on the digital side, doing with their reverbs and stuff, just because you kind of have to. But so they're not just doing that now, but phenomenal.
Because if they built a plate reverb pedal, it'd be probably the size of your window here or something like that. So not exactly practical, even though I guess there are some people out there with pedal boards about that size, but I digress. Probably not just for a plate reverb unit. So anyway, all right, rapid fire questions. First thing that pops to mind.
Okay.
Desert island, you've got an amp, you've got a guitar, and you've got one pedal. What are they?
Well, it's just what I use. I tend to be the person who just finds something they like and that's all they play until they find the next thing that they like.
Yeah.
So for me, it's my Southside guitar.
Grab it because it's a beautiful guitar.
It's a Tele Deluxe style guitar. This guy right here.
Yeah,
so,
that's sweet.
Tele Deluxe style Porter wide range humbuckers, or wide range pickups, I guess. Yeah. All kind of lightly relicked. Love it. This is my go-to guitar, and has been since I bought it.
Yeah. So
I got it.
What are the amps? Because I know you've got your AC20, which you've had for a while, and you've got the Tyler, which is obviously a completely different thing. But
so I really like the Tyler. Tyler, again, I got the Tyler, and that's all I played.
Yeah.
Until I kind of stopped using amps. So I don't use amps a lot with where I play, but for this scenario, Southside guitar, Tyler amp,
one pedal. No multi-effects because that's cheating.
Ooh, that's tough. Because I either want to say like a dirt pedal that can really do well, or just like one delay. Like I loved the L cap, and I would probably still have it if I didn't have a good a crazy trade opportunity. But
right.
So L cap, because I also love really just like droney, moody, atmospheric stuff, and it could do all of that really.
But you use a timeline, so I mean, a timeline I wouldn't consider that a multi-effect. It's still just a delay.
Yeah.
But you could dial in some like chorus tones and looping and all that kind of stuff too.
Yeah.
So that's
timeline could do it too.
Yeah,
for sure.
Okay, so if you had no budget, you could buy anything you want. It doesn't have to be something you've played, but something you're interested in. What's a new pedal that you think is really cool and excites you? You've kind of mentioned the Thermae before, which is still a totally fair answer. But is there anything that you see? It's like, I really want to spend some time with that. What would it be?
Well, for my current stage in life or playing, I guess I'm kind of looking at what gets the job done the easiest. And we kind of talked about this a little bit before, but I am not going to buy it because I'm limiting myself, but the Quad Cortex is really fascinating.
Yeah.
Like I've got a Kemper that I got fairly recently that I haven't dug into enough that I need to spend more time with because I was planning on trying to use that as a live rig and hadn't gotten around to it.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely not buying anything new. I'm definitely not buying a Quad Cortex right now. Yeah. But as far as like those all-in-one, just dial it in.
Yeah.
Plug it in.
Yeah.
XLR, done.
There you go.
It's not really a single pedal per se, but
Oh yeah,
it's a rig.
Yeah,
So.
well, and it's I think what's so exciting about that, to me at least, because even though, like, at least upon the filming of this, like, there's one, you can't just go buy one right now. You have to get on a pre-order list. And, you know, like, that's kind of to be expected with COVID and all the fulfillment issues everybody's having. So, you know, no harm, no foul to Neural DSP if they're watching this, which, Neural DSP, if you're watching this, let me know in the comments below, because that's dope.
Yeah.
But, you know, like, the UI, like, the big touch screen, you know, like, we all have been programmed to using touchscreens for, you know, most of us now at some point. It's like been half our life, or for 8 or 9 years, even since the inception of the smartphone and the iPhone and all that kind of stuff. And like that to me makes a ton of sense. But I'm also like a knobs guy. Like I want like hands-on and that kind of thing. So having the foot switches that are also haptic feedback knobs is like, that's one of those things where, as a not pedal designer and someone that's not really electrically minded at all, I'm just like, that's brilliant. Yeah. Like, that's so smart. Why hasn't someone done that before? And I'm sure it's a hardware thing, because I didn't even know that's something you could buy, but that's nuts.
I hadn't seen them before, but yeah, just the physical touch of the knobs that you also get with the touchscreen is a good. But yeah, as something that definitely piqued my interest, that if I could try anything at this exact moment, I would love to try one of those.
Yeah. All right, so dream guitar. Obviously, like you love your Southside Custom, that kind of stuff. But again, no budget. You could just try anything or own anything. What's something that you've always wanted to play, but you've never been able to, or, you know, played it and weren't able to afford it and that kind of thing?
It's hard to say, just because, like, you want to say, like before the Southside, I had, you know, I've got a Nash Jazzmaster.
Yeah.
And, like, that just felt right. When I had that, I love the Jazzmaster feel. So like, part of me wants to say like a legit vintage classic Jazzmaster that's like, you know, the pinnacle example of like whatever 63, 64, whatever the year is. I'm not great with history and you know, vintage stuff, but
like a mid 60s like Fender pre-CBS Jazzmaster.
But then at the same time, like, I'm also very practically minded in the sense of like, people get better and people learn new things and you improve. And so like, I know you've talked a lot about Sir stuff. Yeah. And like, that stuff is super dope. Yeah. So like, I don't know. I don't have I just have what I like, and that's what I use. But
so vintage Fender or Sir, something like that, maybe.
Something in that range.
Something in that range.
Somewhere in that giant range of stuff.
That huge span of 50-something
of
years.
Everything.
Yeah.
Everything falls in there.
Yeah. All right, what about amps? Is there anything? I mean, obviously, like, at this point, you're like, gets the job done. You use modelers, you use a Kemper, you use an Iridium. You also have an HX Stomp, and you've got a couple of great amps sitting in here. So clearly you're all over the place. But is there like a dream amp, something you've always wanted to try or own?
What is there's one amp model, and I don't know if it came stock on the Kemper or not. I think it's a Bogner amp.
Like the Shiva?
No, I don't remember, and that's gonna be a problem. It's gonna bug me later. But there's one amp that I found, and when I clicked on it, I was like, that sounds great.
Oh, okay.
And it's kind of been in the few presets I've been able to make for me personally, and like what I'm trying to do. Yeah. So if I could try that one in real life, whichever one that one is,
whatever that Bogner is,
I think it's a Bogner. I could be totally wrong. I don't remember.
Yeah. Okay.
Because it's named something kind of different.
Something like
it's
that.
Gonna bother me, but yeah.
Well, when you're up at night thinking about it, just text me and we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
All right. So we've kind of covered like that kind of stuff, new stuff that you may want to try, and that kind of thing. If you could go back to any musical year in history and like be anywhere, just experiencing what was happening in music at that time, you know, whether that's the 1800s and whatever classical music's happening, or if that's the 60s, 70s in America or London, anything like that. What's maybe some music that, you know, even like you mentioned, like growing up listening to classic rock and stuff, what's like a scene that you would want to see or be a part of? And your facts don't have to be historically accurate.
Yeah, I'm not a history guy at all. My memory is bad enough as it is. I think the amount of things that changed in such a short amount of time in like the London, like Jimi Hendrix coming out, like era, or like couple years era, just like the amount of things that just like blew up out of nowhere, seemingly, could be really fascinating to just like be on the front end of that. And maybe people who are like very not receptive to that be like, this is terrible. Like, or like just to feel the buzz, like maybe in America, like when the Beatles like first come to America, and just what the like general like group think on that was, and the craziness. But then like to see like a Led Zeppelin concert would just be iconic, something like that. But historically, I think probably the amount of stuff that happened in a short period of time in the London area would be crazy. From both a musical side and like a tech side, with like some pedals that were coming out around there, fuzz faces,
Solar sound,
that kind of stuff, all those things. It's just like things went nuts after this, know, like
like literally, like things were slamming the wall of clipping diodes, and politically, and like everything else that was going on musically, completely changing. Anyway, wow. That's really cool. So, all right, I'm thinking a little bit now. I'm gonna have to cut this because I don't remember what I was gonna say. Do I leave it in or do I cut it because I completely lost my train of thought? That is the question. Oh, all right. So, who are a couple of artists that you're really into right now? It could be bands, it could be new, could be old, anything like that. But just like what's on your heavy rotation right now?
So, I love Manchester Orchestra.
Okay, yeah.
They're one of my favorites.
Yep.
Have been for forever. I still really love like Death Cab for Cutie, nostalgic reasons. Yeah. High school, like that was it. Lately, I've gotten kind of more into stuff like I really like Chon and like Pliny, and stuff that is just kind of wild,
like kind of math rock, like weird time signatures.
Like I love the math rock stuff. I'm trying to think. Those are probably my heavy rotation right now. The heaviest, probably.
Okay,
we'll go with that. That covers a good kind of span.
All right, so since we're all, still kind of, we're not locked down, but the world hasn't, really opened back up yet and that kind of thing. But if you could go tomorrow and you could see any band right now, it has to be like a current artist currently would be performing or touring or whatever, anything like that, who would you want to see live? You could have seen them before or somebody you haven't seen live.
Oh, man. That's tough. I wish my gut reaction is I wish that Mute Math was still touring.
Oh my gosh, don't we all?
Because that's one of my other favorite bands.
Don't we all? I never got to see them before they broke up.
Man, I saw them
so
like
sad.
3 or 4 times.
So sad.
I would love to do that.
Man, I'm gonna have to listen to some Mute Math tonight. It's been a minute since they've been in my like heavy rotation, so I'm gonna have to go back to that.
Actually, this is just a topical answer, I guess. I would like to see Deep Sea Diver headline.
Oh.
So I saw them open up for Colony House here in Birmingham.
Okay.
And I like didn't really know who they were, and then after the fact, I was like, "Oh, these people are really good." And then they kind of blew up, and they've obviously been in like, she's been in a lot of videos and is really popular in the gear community.
Yeah. But
I didn't feel like I really like enjoyed it as much as I probably could have when I did see them open.
Right.
Because I was just like, I didn't know.
It was just a band. Yeah.
But when I saw them open, I was like, this is really good.
Yeah.
But I would appreciate it more now because I've like listened to their stuff.
I can sing along now or something.
Yeah, like I've their CD, their new CD's been on my heavy rotation for sure.
Listen to that. I'm gonna have to listen to that.
Fantastic. Yeah, it really is good.
Cool. All right. Well, Drew, thanks so much for doing this. Fortunately, you're just a few minutes down the road, but always good to hang out and chat. So give the pitch. This is the shill moment. So where can people find you? Where can they follow you, keep up with you, and kind of all the stuff that you're doing personally, but also Swindler Effects and that kind of thing?
Yeah, so all the socials. We got a website, swindlereffects.com. That's where all the information is going to be. Instagram, Facebook.
Yeah.
Facebook is just Instagram reposted.
Yeah.
Honestly. I'm not super active. It's not because I don't exist.
Yeah.
It's just I got a lot of things going on. But really, I respond to every email.
Yeah,
so
cool.
Contact page on the website if you really want to know something or have a question.
Yeah.
Instagram is always good too. So
for sure. All right, well, thanks again for coming on. If you haven't already, like this video, and if you want to thank Drew and myself for doing this, I've got a link down below for the PayPal tip jar. And Drew doesn't drink coffee, but you could, pay for me a cup of coffee and pay for him a Dr. Pepper or something like that for next time we hang out. Follow him on social media. If you haven't already, subscribe, comment any of your thoughts down below, and be sure to check out Drew's stuff. As I said, big fan of what you're doing, and look forward to doing it again sometime.
yeah, of course.
All right, dude. Thanks.